X-Men issue number 109. Our heroes are home, they are no longer in outer space, and in this issue we learn that they didn't actually just magically reappear back in Greenwich Village, but they actually left the M'Kraan crystal and ended up back in front of all those warriors that were trying to kill them. But they're conflicted because they've obviously seen now that Emperor D'Ken is nuts, but they can't just easily accept Lilandra as their new empress because she literally led a rebellion as a traitor against the Empire. So some council meetings are going to need to be had just so that they can get everyone on the same page in supporting Lilandra after what they've all seen her do. So in the meantime, Lilandra has to stay on Earth with the X-Men because she's like temporarily exiled. Now while all this is being decided, Phoenix is trying to get Corsair to tell Scott that he's his dad. She's like, come on, he wants to know that you're his dad. Corsair's like, no, he's been fine this whole time. He ended up a good dude and he's better off not knowing me. I'm just a space pirate. So now Jean has to just like keep this a secret from the man she loves, which sucks. But luckily, Storm was standing nearby enough that she could hear the whole thing. At least she can, share in this secret with her best friend Storm, and she doesn't have to carry that weight on her own because it's a lot, and Storm even thinks it's pretty fucked up that Corsair asked her to do that. Anyway, it's only after all of this that the X-Men are finally able to relax. They go back to Westchester to the X-Men mansion. Storm rushes upstairs to water her plants and take a shower herself with some manifested rainwaters. Sean Cassidy wastes no time giving Moira a huge kiss because he hasn't seen her in so long. Nightcrawler calls up his girlfriend and sees she's got a girlfriend for Colossus so they can go out together. Jean Grey explains everything to her parents about how she's a mutant and how she's, the Phoenix, and she's got a lot to fill them in on. And the rest of the X-Men plan a beach day. So Wolverine goes with them, but he's actually gonna peel off and do his own thing. He just wants to go to the beach so he can hunt in the woods behind the beach. The rest of the X-Men are just gonna be splashing in the water and having a good time. And everything seems to be going really great, peachy keen, hunky-dory, until Wolverine realizes that somebody's in the woods with him. Somebody scared off a deer, and it wasn't him. And it's Weapon Alpha, aka the Guardian, aka the leader of Team Alpha Flight from Canada, and he's come back to collect the Wolverine, I guess. I don't know why Canada wants him back, but he tries to take out Wolverine, and he ends up alerting all the rest of the X-Men, and they're like, you're not gonna take our friend, bro. And things get messy. I mean, the Guardian shoots this photon blast or whatever it is at Colossus' metal body, and it bounces right off of him, and it burns Moira in the face. It just knocks her right off her feet, hit her in the head, and Sean Cassidy's like, holy shit, that is my girl. So he takes off full force at the Guardian with Storm, and Guardian doesn't know that these people can fly, and he's like, okay, I didn't prepare to take on a whole team of X-Men, I just came here for Wolverine, I'm gonna dip. So he just teleports out of existence and leaves the X-Men to wonder what the fuck just happened. And everyone's looking at Wolverine like, who was that? And he's like, at one time we were brothers, but this is really bad news, and it's only gonna get worse. X-Men number 110. The X-Men are enjoying a day off by playing baseball at the park and celebrating Moira McTaggart's last night in New York. They're having a good time. Wolverine's being kind of a grumpy sport because he's grumpy about everything, and Jean tries to cheer him up, which he really appreciates. Inside the mansion, they're waiting for the telephone man to come fix the phones because apparently something happened to him, so Moira runs inside because she thinks the phone guy's waiting out front. And while there is somebody waiting at the front door, it's not the phone guy, it's this bad guy named Warhawk that's being controlled by this other voice that's in his mind that he calls Master, and he shoots Moira McTaggart with a tranquilizer dart, and he shows himself into the computer center where he's trying to download some intel on the X-Men. When they're all done playing baseball, they walk back to the mansion, and Wolverine invites Jean to go get a beer somewhere, and Scott's like, what the fuck is that about? So in an effort to make sure that doesn't happen, Scott's like, no, we got training today, everybody to the danger room, when it was their day off, and everyone's upset about it, but Scott's being controlling about who gets to spend time with Jean. And though Jean doesn't join them, she has been using her powers all day to wheel Professor X around, and it's super easy for her to just mindlessly control things around her. And as she talks to the professor, she's internally thinking I'm crazy powerful, and it kind of scares me, but I also really like it. But just as they're rounding the corner, Jean gets sight of Warhawk, and she screams, and she tries to stop him with her powers, but nothing happens, and he totally has time to shoot both her and the professor with those same tranquilizer darts. And as Jean slowly slips unconscious, she's like, why didn't my powers work? But what does happen is she manages to send her vision of what happened to her to Cyclops inside the danger room, and he's freaking out. He's like, oh my god, Jean was attacked. But they're locked inside the danger room now, and Warhawk has managed to turn the danger room onto try to destroy the X-Men. So they're trapped in there just trying to fight the Danger Room until Scott finally makes the call to send Nightcrawler out with Wolverine to teleport out of the room and go to the control panel and turn off the power to the Danger Room. Which, I mean, Nightcrawler's going to do it, but he's worried about it because the last time he teleported with somebody was Lilandra, and it really wore him down, and Wolverine's quite a bit heavier than Lilandra, so he's going to have to carry this person through the BAMF, and it actually does wear them both out really badly. And this is when Warhawk and Wolverine have a huge face-off, and they're fighting, and Wolverine's claws aren't cutting through Warhawk's skin because Warhawk's skin is like metal. They're fighting, but Wolverine's hurting. And just as Wolverine's losing steam, the rest of the X-Men are able to bust out of the Danger Room. And this guy Warhawk, honestly, he tells them, he's like, I wasn't trying to kill you guys. I was just sent here to take intel on you guys. But they beat him up and they put him in jail. And when Moira and the Professor X and Jean all wake up from being tranquilized, Jean realizes that she really does not have control of her powers and that she should be training in the Danger Room with the rest of the X-Men. So I think she's thinking of staying here at the mansion and not returning to her apartment in Greenwich Village. And Scott is looking at her and watching her say this stuff, and he just wishes she would talk to him about what's going on inside of her, because she's been having all these fears and feelings about her Phoenix powers. She's really conflicted about it all, and she hasn't talked to Scott once. She talked to her parents. She hasn't talked to him, though, and he's just like, I am your partner. Why won't you talk to me? So while he's worried about that, Professor Xavier is worried about whoever sent this Warhawk guy and what their motivations might be. X-Men number 111. Something weird has happened between the last issue and this issue. The X-Men have forgotten who they are, and they are performers in like a 3-ring circus. And Hank McCoy, aka Beast, has found them. Now, he didn't even intend to go looking for them. He had received a call from Lorna Dane saying that Havoc went missing, and a lot of weird things are going on. Some Avengers went missing as well, and so he decided to go use Cerebro to see if he could find Havoc, and when we got to the mansion, the X-Men were missing too. So this all led Beast to this sideshow, circus, performance, whatever it is. And Beast hasn't actually met the new X-Men, but he does know Scott and Jean Grey, and he sees Jean Grey, and he says, hey, gotta talk to you. You look just like this girl named Jean Grey. Do you know what I'm talking about? And she doesn't, and she realizes he's blue, and she gets terrified, and she calls on somebody named Slim, who apparently is Scott, and he comes out and fights Beast. Now, Beast has been wearing this trench coat, but now he's, like, exposed and blue, and everybody thinks a gorilla was let loose from the circus show or whatever. So Beast is trying to get away safely, and he realizes he's going to have to call in some reinforcements from the Avengers. But before he gets a chance to, Colossus punches him in the back of his head and knocks him out pretty good. Now, Wolverine's trapped in the back, and he sees this. He sees what's going on, but he's all chained up, and it starts to awaken some primal urge inside of him. And as that's happening, the bad guys are delivering Beast to their leader, who happens to be Mesmero. Now, Mesmero is an old foe of the X-Men who used to be friends with Magneto, but actually not really. It wasn't Magneto. It was a robot. That's like a whole other story. But this guy has like mind control powers. And apparently what had happened was he ran into Jean Grey, like at a train station, and he hypnotized her, and then he got her to take him to the X-Mansion, and he hypnotized the rest of them, and he trapped them all in this sideshow. Well, thank goodness Wolverine doesn't really act like with his mind. He's more like primal and instinct driven, because that is really what wakes him up out of this weird hallucination that he's living in. And he busts out, realizes who he is, he runs to Jean Grey and Scott, and he knows that Jean Grey is like primal too. Now that she's the Phoenix, she's got that crazy flame inside of her too. So he starts honestly just whipping her ass. He's just smacking her around, trying to piss her off so that she's gonna react. And it works. Jean Grey remembers she's the Phoenix, and she uses her power to wake up all of the other X-Men. And just as the team is about to face off against Mesmero, he collapses, and somebody behind him has been behind this whole thing the whole time, and it's Magneto. X-Men number 112. The X-Men confronted Mesmero in this wagon at the circus, but before he could do anything, Magneto put him down. Scott is nervous because Magneto's super powerful, and Scott's pretty convinced that no matter what they do, they're going to lose a fight to Magneto. So he has Nightcrawler teleport out of there so that he can find a way out, and what Nightcrawler finds is that they're no longer on the ground. Magneto's been flying the wagon the whole time they've been talking, and he's just like out there hanging on the edge of the wagon. He almost died. And they are way too high up for Storm or Banshee's powers to work. There's not enough air at the elevation that they're at for either their powers to save them so they can fly down. So they're just trapped up there with Magneto, and he's telling them how he followed Beast to the circus to get to them, and he discards Mesmero's body. So the X-Men are trapped in this wagon, and Magneto actually flies them all the way down to his secret base that's hidden in a volcano in Antarctica. One by one, Magneto overpowers each X-Man. Magneto has a lot more powers in the comic books than he does in the movies. In the movies, he controls metal, but in the books, he has like magnetic force fields, and he can use the Earth's magnetic poles to move things around. He doesn't need you to be made of metal to move things. He can move pretty much anything by putting it in a magnetic force field. So he takes them all out one by one. The only one who actually really stands a chance against him is Phoenix, and she puts up a pretty good fight, but she reaches some kind of limit to her power, and Magneto takes advantage of that and uses magnetic forces of the Earth itself to create a bottleneck effect around her or something like that, and he basically cages her. And he traps them all. He cages them all. He's going to keep them down in this underground bunker forever with this nanny robot that's supposed to take care of them, but it's humiliating to them because they can't talk, they can't walk, they can't use their powers, and he wants them to feel this way because he wants revenge for this one time that the X-Men turned him into a baby, which happened in issue number something, I don't know what issue, but he literally got turned into a baby, and he was stuck that way until Eric the Red saved him, and so he wants them to be humiliated like that for the rest of their lives. That's his ultimate revenge on them, is this form of torture. X-Men number 113. The X-Men have been captured. The Fantastic Four have broken up. The Avengers are on house arrest. The bad guys are running amok. Magneto is doing what he wants. He is destroying this airbase in Woomera, Australia for some reason. He's there to steal something, but I don't know what. And there's no one who could stop him. He's just running these streets unchecked. Meanwhile, in Greece, Lilandra and Xavier are trying to live a relaxing life, but Lilandra's kind of stressed because she knows she's eventually going to have to leave and go back to her planet and leave Xavier here. Xavier's stressed because he's lost his psychic rapport with the X-Men, and he doesn't know why. He doesn't know that they're in an underground base hidden under a volcano in Antarctica with these inhibitors strapped onto their necks and their bodies so that they can't use their powers and they can't use their adult human functions. They can't walk, they can't talk. They're essentially like 6-month-old babies. And they've got this creeper nanny robot taking care of them, brushing their hair, feeding them, bathing them. It's really weird and uncomfortable. And Storm has had enough. Storm was a very capable 6-month-old baby, so even though she's been reduced to like an infantile state, she is able to focus enough to remove her headdress and take her lockpicks that she keeps stored in her headdress. She uses her tongue and her teeth to try to maneuver and finagle the lock so that she can get out of this chair, out of the inhibitor, and free the rest of the X-Men. Now Magneto is on his space base called Asteroid M, and he realizes that there's some sort of malfunction at the complex that the X-Men are in, and he's like, why didn't the nanny robot, alert me about this? So he just, casually travels from that asteroid down to Antarctica, down through the lava of a fucking molten volcano, and he immediately knows that the X-Men have been freed because the nanny robot's running in circles and all the lights are turned off, and he gets attacked by all of the X-Men working together. They're using Jean Grey as a connector. They have a psychic rapport between all of them, and they can communicate in their minds. And rather than attack him one by one, they're able to take Magneto down by working as a team. But in the scuffle, they kind of damaged the lining of the base and cracked some of the walls of the volcano, and there's lava pouring in here now. A huge wall of lava separates the X-Men. Beast is able to save Jean Grey, but on the other side of the wall of lava is the rest of the X-Men. This distraction allows Magneto a chance to escape, and he can leave through the lava. He's been going back and forth using his magnetic force bubble to go in and out through the molten lava. But none of the other X-Men have that power except for Jean. Jean is actually able to, with her powers, get through the lava that was falling down on top of her head, her and Beast, and they make it out to the top of the volcano, and they're trapped in the snowstorm on Antarctica, and they're weak, and Jean's like, we've got to go back and save the other X-Men, and Beast is like, they just had a volcano collapse on top of them, Jean, they're dead. Subscribe to stay updated when the next issue comes out, titled Desolation, the Day the X-Men Died.